Well, good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, and welcome back to the Sling of Ages podcast. I'm your host, Preston Frazier. And on this episode, which is another bonus episode, and actually an archive recording I have of an interview I did back in 2020 with Danielia Cotton as she was releasing her new album, EP, A Different War. So we talk about the EP, we talk about how she came to have that album out and her career. And you'll notice that during the beginning, we talk about some of the social issues, social justice issues going on in the country. But it's a fascinating interview for a really fascinating artist. Again, the Sling Ages podcast season 5 will be back in September. So in the meantime, I hope you enjoy this. This is audio only, and I recorded, like I said, back in 2020 on my phone, so there's no video to it, but I hope you enjoy it. Thanks. It's an interesting time because a lot of the media is now, celebrating Juneteenth and recognizing Juneteenth, and it wouldn't have happened but for the death of Mr. Floyd. But hopefully, out of his death and a lot of other people, something good come out of this. I mean, something good will come out of this. I hope so.
Yeah. Well, Trump is taking responsibility for everybody, for recognizing Juneteenth. I was like, what? He said if it wasn't for him, no one would have known. I was like, oh my Lord, another thing. Here we go. Let's add that one to the list. Yeah.
So yeah, let's get into your new album, and you know, this is your first full album in a while. I think since 2017 or so, even though you did an EP a while ago. So what was the impetus for coming up? I'm sorry, this is an EP, right?
It's an EP. But and we'll be adding 2 tracks, I believe, in like another 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We'll put out vinyl and add another 2. I think this one just came because it was time, and sometimes you write certain albums. My first album that I ever did, I wrote for a long time. Sometimes one album can take you quite a distance. There are artists nowadays who put out music quite frequently,
right?
And keep it more like singles versus albums. So and I think I'm heading towards being a little bit more, definitely more releasing music a little bit more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that has to do with my life and sort of the arrival of my daughter, and just a lot of things slowed down a little bit, the production of things. But now, it's kind of with COVID-19 and all of us being shut in. If anything, it's made a lot of us more creative. This was done before that, but I'm finding myself already, having a nice little handful of new music outside of even the state T, which is why we'll probably go ahead and add another single easily to it, and then re-release it to vinyl. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think, if I recall, Small White Town was your first full album. Is that right?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I mean, there was an EP. There was an EP before it, Danielia Cotton, and then came Small White Town.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they might have actually released I feel like they released the EP. I mean, the EP Danielia Cotton did really fall before it, but Small White Town was really the first full album. Yeah.
So, and you toured pretty extensively. I think I first saw you for the Small White Town tour where you were opening for Living Color. But you've been touring for a while. I know you took a break recently, and of course everyone's off the road now. In terms of your writing process for A Different War, how has that changed since Small White Town?
I mean, I think it's always been a thing of when a song comes. Although now, sometimes I sit down and I go, I'm going to write. I think back in the day, sometimes, I guess sometimes I just sit down and just say I'm going to write something. Um, you know, but I felt like back then things came and I just sat down. Mm-hmm. There was no rhyme or reason to it or discipline to go, oh, I'm going to sit down and write something. Where now, as I've gotten further into my career, sometimes you're management and they'll be like, hey, let's try to put out something new. And then you sit down and you think about what you want to say. Where I sort of flew by the seat of my pants a little bit more back in the day. I wrote when a song came. Now, actually, I'll sit down and play a little bit with chord progressions because I've been taking piano and guitar lessons in the last few years, mm-hmm. which I thought, as a musician, kind of always taking lessons and, trying to really keep your skill set fresh and kind of progressing more. And when I finally went to take piano, really for the first time in like a decade, he did a lot more theory, and which also gave me a lot more vocab. All of a sudden those 19 million more chords, and different. And when you're writing on the guitar, different chord progressions will come. When you're on the piano, it's just different. Your susses and all. I mean, like, not that you can't play those on the guitar, but when you're learning the piano, it's a different way to voice a chord, and it's just all of a sudden I don't know. It's like you get a whole new vocabulary, and then you can say things differently and color them differently. So that really helps, I gotta say.
So, in terms of the lyrical content, how has that changed, or was there a specific series of incidents which helped create the lyrical content for the new album?
I think A Different War, even though we're going through this, was literally written a few years ago and just is the way it is. I think everything's just coming to a head, and so the timing of it and the release really sort of just was some stroke of luck, which happens right. from time to time. The other things, I always write about my life a little bit. Yeah, so my content definitely is reflective of lessons learned or whatever I've gone through.
Sure.
So that still remains a huge part of it, the context of my work is life lessons, just observations, my life.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that the album, a full album, will be coming out with a vinyl and 2 additional songs. What was the first song you wrote for the EP? Do you recall?
I would say, I think She Too and She Pie. And probably She Pie came first, then She Too, then Different War, and then If You Don't Want Me, and Better Off Without You.
Do you recall when you wrote the first song?
She Pie, a while. Maybe I want to say 3.5 years. It took a minute for that song to come into its own, and I played it for a while to get it, and then the incarnation, the way it's played now, kind of came from playing with it for a while.
Mm-hmm. So you tested it on the road.
That's not a collab. Yeah, I tested it at little gigs and stuff, and when we went out, even in duo situations, it was a song that I wrote. She Pie, I wrote alone, and so it was. It took me a minute to sort of get it to where I wanted it to be. Yeah.
How did it change in terms of when you first started working on it about 3 or so years ago to the final version on A Different War?
I think when I wrote it, I actually wrote it on like a dobro guitar. Mm-hmm. There's Beard Guitars makes this. It's like a dobro kind of. It's really beautiful, but it's sort of Nick with an electric guitar. I bought it on our convention thing that happened in Woodstock, and they were there. And I saw the guitar. Sometimes the sound of a guitar or a new guitar can make you right. So it was beautiful sounding. But I think when I wrote it on that guitar, it had a specific sound. And when I met some of the church boys, I just, you know, they had never heard the song, so it allowed me to get outside of it and approach it a different way. And because we were playing music differently, as of late, I just sort of applied sort of a new whole take to it, and it just fell into place, and it worked. So a lot of that came from playing it with different musicians and having the ability to have like 3 new people that had never heard it. And so I just took a turn, like, oh, let me try it this way, stylistically, and they went, and it worked. So I have to sort of credit that to new ears and new players.
Okay. And that's helpful. What about the song Better Off Without You? What can you tell me about that?
That just that was I feel like that and If You Don't Want Me were both songs that I kind of wrote in rehearsal. Started them and then I was like, oh, and then I said, give me a minute, and then I went home and finished it. Those are both how that happened. Just sort of saying, like, we need something, literally saying in rehearsal, we need something like this, and then the song came. Mm-hmm. And then I finished it, that night or within that week.
Okay, very good. And let's see. Cheap High seems pretty, lyrically seems pretty obvious. I mean, not obvious in terms of it. The subject matter seems it's pretty descriptive of what it is. Anything else you can add about that song?
You mean what it's saying?
Yes.
I mean, to me, it is definitely about money, but it's like sort of, it's addiction. It's trading, maybe something else to feed it. A lot of times when people have addictions, when they put one thing down, it somehow that addictive way flows into something else. Mm-hmm. It could be anything. So in this, it happens to be money, but you could replace that with anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's more, whatever, but for me, it's just, you sort of let go of something else, and then it becomes, I just found myself, money becoming different and soothing things for me in a way. But other things have done like this much, and so it's pretty intense.
Yes. The first single was Forgive Me, and you co-wrote that with your sister?
Yeah, when I was writing it, I was in Woodstock, and a lot of times, lyrically, when I hit a wall, I'll ask, sometimes even my partner, but I call my sister sometimes. I'll be like, hey, which I did on different work, which she also, and I'll tell her what I'm doing, and I'll play it for her over the phone, and then lyrically she comes in. She's a really talented writer, so it's great to be able to, help get her stuff out there, because she's really, she's really gifted. She tends to be more vocal on, the internet and social media about social issues, and she's really quite good. But and she writes a lot of poetry, so and I know her, so a lot of times it just works. She's able to help me finish the thought in a really beautiful way.
So that familiarity helps, and she contributed.
Yeah, and being related. Yeah, she speaks the way I do. It's like not a lot of explanation. I can just literally tell what I'm writing about, and then we finish. Yeah.
Okay, great. So you co-produced this album, correct?
Yes, we didn't really use technically a producer per se, and so my brother and my manager and myself really were the years in the room. And my brother has, from the beginning of my career, has been my biggest fan, but he's also so knowledgeable. And so I always brought him into the room because he also tells the truth. And then my manager, for sure, tells the truth. Sometimes I'm like, okay. So it was really good. I didn't have, I had 2 other ears that were not ears that were always going to tell me what I wanted to share, but sort of held me to a certain standard, and I thought it was great. And we had just enough of difference in our opinions that it really helped the whole thing get to where it needed to be.
And the playing was done primarily by your touring band, the Church Boys.
They did 2 of the songs, but but I also called in. I'm in New York, but there's a plethora of just extraordinary musicians. So, Aaron Coleman and Andy Hess and a lot of the guitar, Jack Petrozelli. I mean, some of them are just great. Ben Butler, I called them because it was great. I mean, the Church Boys literally are the players that you use behind you. So sort of like the E Street Band. There'll be some members that remain always, but you add to that, little group. And here, like I said, New York, it's insane who you have to call.
Right.
A lot of great players. Yeah. Oof.
So where?
Nashville, New York. Yeah.
Nashville and New York. So which studios in Nashville, New York that you use?
The only time when I went to Nashville, I worked with a guy, Brad, and he had a studio with his partner, and so that was basically where I went in Nashville. And then he would call. I mean, it's Nashville, so there's a plethora of great people. So he would call in musicians. I was always like, oh my God, and they were great. I mean, the music town. I mean, I think actually they're become more of a music town even than New York, because so many of our venues are gone, and we're not even that. When you go to Nashville, it's just really intense. I tend to prefer wanting to record in the city, but I find that Nashville's great. They have the sound and you definitely get something there too that's a little different.
Sure. And I want a little bit about the recording process. So was it recorded via Pro Tools?
Yeah, when we were in, the engineer used Pro Tools. And we went in and, that was a lot of what, some stuff I brought in from Logic and then we dumped it in. I had loops, which were used on a few songs, and then we went into Pro Tools from there.
Sorry, go ahead.
And then, then it was fed to the mixer, Dave O'Donnell, who's, extraordinary and, Grammy winning, and he's awesome. So, we just had from soups to nuts, from the front to the back, and then the master for the Calvi, also great Grammy winning too. We had really great people on it, so it was great.
So how many songs did you ultimately end up recording? I know you released the EP first. You mentioned the vinyl and the album coming out in a little bit. How many songs did you record for the project overall?
I mean, I think for right now, I think there's one that maybe didn't make it, to this album. But I think, all in all, what made it to this is pretty much what we have.
Okay.
I mean, it's to cry a different word. Forgive me that I forgot if you don't want me. Basically, the song, that we wanted to be on there. Doing the additional one, some were right now, it seemed as I was playing this, when I did my first live stream, while we were rehearsing, we wrote another song. And I was like, oh my gosh. And it just fit. So we're going to go back in, and then another one came. So it's just, so for all I know, it could be 2 now and end up being 3 when we go back in. But we'll add it to the, to the project. So it's just, it's music. It comes when it wants to come.
Sure.
Right now, I think it's just it's an intense time. And so I think all artists are sort of creating at a different level because there's so much going on. And it's like the emotional, what's going on emotionally for all of us right now is so intense. And for me in my life, my God, there's so much going on personally on top of COVID-19. It's extraordinary. So it's just, you can't help it. It comes out in your music. Having a new daughter, I thought it would be the opposite, but she's made me more creative.
Wow.
So it's a lot. It's a lot. I think there'll be more music consistently for me this year than probably ever I've done in my career.
That's fantastic. So you mentioned a live stream. I wasn't aware of that. Are you planning on doing any additional live streams since we're kind of locked down?
Yeah, there's a performance coming up on the 26th at Sellersville Theater, which is it's a beautiful theater in Pennsylvania, and they are going to bring in a camera crew, and we will actually go to the theater, and they will live stream it. It'll be in conjunction with them, so it'll be their first live stream for that venue, which is what I think a lot of venues are going to have to do.
Sure.
So I will be their first live stream.
You said that'll be at Sellersville.
Sellersville.
Oh, Sellersville.
Sellersville Theater in Pennsylvania. Yeah.
And is that on your website?
Yes, it is on. I believe it is on all of the. It's currently on the Facebook, the Instagram. It's up, and it's from their stage, Sellersville Theater.
I want to make sure that we mention that.
Yeah. I think it's June 26th at 8 p.m.
Okay, 6/26. So, I mean, obviously, COVID has had a huge impact on the touring industry. Did you have a tour planned before this started? The lockdowns and.
I mean, we all kind of had dates in our books, and they're gone now, and everybody's trying to figure out if they're going to. How they're going to do it. I was going to do the original album release at the Iridium that got canceled. I mean, it's just, we're in contact with the venues that we were going to play at and then see what happens. A lot of times when you release a radio, you release an album, your tour follows your radio. And we're doing well in radio. So, but it doesn't matter now because you can't do that either. So hopefully venues will do like what Sellersville is doing, and they'll do live streams from their venue, and they sponsor the tour. Like you go to the venue, which I think is great that Sellersville is doing this. They're doing a 3-camera show. It's awesome. So I hope I'm excited. It's different than you having to do it from your home and there's one screen. I mean, I think there's nothing like having an audience there, and hopefully maybe they can start off with small audience live stream. So at least you're getting some sense of, that energy, because part of a live show is the audience. And when you take that factor out, I think for a lot of them, it's huge. I mean, an audience can pull you in another direction. They can make you great. So that's a real struggle. I think that'll be the struggle for a lot of artists. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I don't think that makes an artist bad that they feed off their audience. I remember, when I was young, there were a lot of artists. My mom was a jazz singer, and I remember I used to say Al Jarreau. They used to say that they literally had to put an audience in the studio with him because he just couldn't perform the thing. It just wasn't good. So they would put the audience in the studio with him while he recorded it out.
Wow, that's amazing.
So a lot of people need the audience. They are a real factor in this, and I think now artists will understand what that means. Like, we have to be thankful for that. Us fans and the audience clearly contribute to the show. They are an actual real part of the show.
Yeah,
That's my opinion.
absolutely. Is there anything about a different war that you want to talk about that I didn't cover?
I mean, I think it's weird and great that thematically it fits the moment. I mean, the album title, A Different War, we are in a different war.
Mhm.
It's, you know, me and the rapper were shooting the video, with COVID-19 and masks, and he brought another one of his friends, another rapper, and he was like, y'all fortune tellers. Like, we didn't know what the moment was going to be. I thought the revolution would be televised. I mean, even the rapper's lyrics, it's insane.
Mhm.
It's just, that's the beauty of life. And then the moment came. So we'll be releasing the video soon. We shot it. I think it will be great. The same guy who did a video for Cheap High. And Cheap High we did with like 2 hours, and really in COVID, the beginning stages. Then, we went upstate to a place that was more open than New York, and we were able to really shoot in a more traditional fashion, but still limited by COVID-19.
Mhm.
But I think the video will be beautiful. But I think that, the whole song, I was just trying to have a conversation. I'm in an interracial relationship.
Mhm.
I've been in it for, over 2 decades, and he's Jewish. I mean, anti-Semitism is also on the rise, but
Sure.
a lot of people, and he's a, criminal defense attorney for legal aid, so he understands the whole race thing.
Mhm.
Every single one of his murder clients is Black, but I feel like a lot of the world doesn't get it. And so it was literally, this song was a conversation between someone Black and someone white. Like, you don't get it. And I always go back to that Eddie Murphy skit on Saturday Night Live where he plays the Black person and then he would do the white person. Like, he would go on the bus and the Black person was all serious, and then the white person comes to be a party. It's just like every time the white person enters the room, it was like a party. And it's not that extreme, but I just kind of want to be like, no, your color opens doors, and mine's fighting a whole different war. It
Yes.
doesn't matter that we had Obama as president. This is still where we are. And unfortunately, I don't like to get political, but because of where our government is right now, I feel like racism and the economy, whenever there's an economic slump, traditionally throughout history, racism always rises during these times. And so right now, it's racism at an all-time high. And I do believe some of the political atmosphere right now, most definitely on that being even exacerbated more.
Yep.
So to me, that song came because I'm feeling it in a way I hadn't felt it in a while. And, I hadn't felt real racism or bits of it for quite a while. But even where I live in New York, when I went to look for like preschools for my kids, there was hardly any Black kids in any school. And one lady answered me, literally, I said, what if somebody calls her the N-word or something?
Mhm.
And she said, well, I'm this. And I looked at her and she said, I'm half Australian and half Italian. And in my mind, I thought to myself, that's white and white.
It's not quite the same thing.
Never, but that's where people are. They become so, liberal that they think that was an appropriate answer.
Yep.
In a coveted Montessori school. And I was like, what? And my other half was like, why are you so upset? I was like, why are you not upset?
Yeah.
That is awful. That's not mixed. She has never, ever said, okay, maybe if she was indigenous people from Australia, but no.
Otherwise, she could pass.
Otherwise, she is white, yes. And so she has never, ever had the experience what I've had walking into a store.
Yep.
So it's just, I was blown away. And so I'm glad that I think part of the song came out of a frustration to just tell the other side, like, no, you go through the door and it's one thing, I go through the door and I have to fight harder than you for everything. So there you go. So that was just my desire to get that voice out. Yeah. Sorry to get
No. That's fine. I asked the question, and I will certainly include most of that when we talk about the song a different war. I have one more question for you though, and that's my standard end of interview question. if you could give me your top five favorite albums.
Ooh,
Who else is that?
I wouldn't say it in this order, but Songs in the Key of Life, Stevie Wonder, Prince, the Purple Rain album. Trying to think of which Stones album I would say. Whew. Um, ooh. I mean, to say that we were supposed to Stones, the Essentials album, which kind of includes a lot of their. I think they were, as far as rock goes, I think the first time I really heard one of their songs in a car, it was Ruby Tuesday, and it wasn't even like, I can't get now, or, Don't Give Me Shelter, or Wild Horses, but it was the first rock group where I really, it took my breath away.
Okay.
Listening to it. So I would say, I don't know, when I was listening to it, is that I had, it on in his car, and it was like an essential. So I would say, I don't know, I would go into Simple Essentials album, which would kind of have the best of their stuff.
That's fine.
Yeah. I would say, I'm trying to say females that I really like. I mean, for me, as a woman, I thought the Bonnie Raitt album, and I don't know if she had, it was the Nick of Time one.
Mm-hmm.
That was the name of it.
Yeah, the most popular one.
Yeah, it reintroduced, I knew of her a little bit from my mom, but that really made me find her, and it was a beautiful album too. I Can't Make You Love Me, Nick of Time. I mean, great. For a female, I thought it's great. And I want to say, because I want to put one more female in there, and I can't remember which it was, and I'm going to try to go and then look, but I would probably say the no for her too, but my guitar teacher, Nina Simone, is like jarringly amazing. But it's just, it's level two. I remember being in Italy in this cave on vacation. When I was toward there for a week, and she's doing this cover. I can't remember the name. But she was doing it, and I heard like Beth Miller do it or whatever. I started bawling. It was crazy. I think, all time you got to put her in there. So, for me, rock, I got to say, it was the Stones would probably be my heaviest influence there. Even though I love Zeppelin and I love the Black Crowes, and I mean, I like Southern rock, and there's a bunch, but I would say, Stevie Wonder Songs in the Key of Life.
Sure.
Prince, Purple Rain, The Essentials of Nina Simone, The Essentials of Rolling Stones, and that Bonnie Raitt album. To kind of cover it, but that's a good set of albums. And I dare say, I love the Beatles, but Stick Me on an Island. That would be they'd be in there too. I mean, it would be a tie between Rolling Stones and the Beatles, essentially. But I'm a little bit of a rocker, so I dare say I didn't really listen to the Beatles as much until I got older.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I do really appreciate your time. I know you're very busy, and I will transcribe this and get it to your publicist probably within a week and a half or so. It'll be up on our website. But thank you again. Thanks for the update.
Glad we could finally make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. If you need anything from me, please let me know. You take care of yourself.
Oh, no. Thank you so much. Yeah, you too. Enjoy the weekend.
You too. Bye.